Good evening. I want to begin by thanking you for the honor of being able to share with you some things tonight. In the late 70s, we had uranium mining being thought to come into the Black Hills. And we had a lot of meetings just like this one.
Speak right into the
Sure. Okay, we had a lot of meetings just like this one in the communities because we thought it was important to try and share what we were finding out about plans of the companies and the basic inadequacy of our laws to protect us in many ways. We have, when I say we, the Clean Water Alliance, I'm an attorney with Clean Water Alliance. We're an all-volunteer umbrella group, environmental group in the Black Hills area. Although our focus is uranium mining, our real focus is water. We realize that we live in a semi-arid region. We realize that without water, we have nothing left. Our perspective is that we must not only think about what our paycheck is going to be for next week, but we must think about what our grandchildren are going to have for water supplies and what their grandchildren are going to have for water supplies. And part of the reason why we're concerned about this is because sometimes it takes 20, 30, 40, 50 years for subsurface water to reach areas and for the contamination, in fact, to be discovered and efforts made to try and take care of it. Dr. Jarding talked to you a lot about the problems up in Crow Butte. That's an area where we're currently in litigation with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. For 5 years now, we've not had a hearing because the company has not gotten it together to get adequate information over to the NRC for them to do the studies that they need. This is part of the history of this industry. At one point, the Nebraska Department of Environmental Quality rejected POWERTECH's application for an aquifer exemption. We'll talk about that in a little bit. In Kamiko. Because the company, they felt, had provided misleading information, had talked about giving geology for a different area of Nebraska than what they claimed they wanted to mine. They talked about the company being outright being dishonest. We're talking about foreign companies here. Their only purpose for being here is not to help us. Their only purpose for being here is to make profits for themselves. One of the things that we're concerned about down in northwestern Nebraska, like we are here, is that there is much which is unknown about the hydrology, about the fracturing that was caused by the uplifting of the Black Hills, by the interconnectedness of many aquifers in the area. So we're concerned. Recently, a local geologist by the name of Dr. Hannah Legary published an article because Shadron, which is about 20 miles from the Crow Butte site, has suddenly lost its water supply. And just like the POWERTECH proposal, Kamiko in Crawford, Nebraska, uses a lot of water. One of the things that we're concerned about is, as Dr. Jarding pointed out, is POWERTECH proposes a mill, a regional mill in the Southern Hills. This is the first mine. They get this mine in, they get a regional mill in. They get a regional mill in, and as Dr. Jarding showed you, the way the Indian Cara goes in an oval around the Black Hills, right by Hot Springs, up along Highway 79, by Hermosa, up by Rapid City, up by Sturgis, up by Spearfish. Uranium companies have talked to ranchers outside of Rapid City. I live outside of Rapid City. To me, it's getting very close to home. This regional mill comes in here, they put regional mills up in the northern hills, and everywhere in between, we can have uranium mining. Now, Dr. Jarding talked to you about, yes, there's a lot of permits they have to get. The EPA, the BLM, the NRC, and from our DENR. And we're going to try and challenge wherever we can those permits to point out the questions that we have. One of the questions that we have is, we know that POWERTECH, like Comeco, are Canadian owned. They're foreign owned. The Atomic Energy Act, which regulates federally how these companies operate within the United States, has no jurisdiction outside of the United States. The decisions that are going to be made about whether POWERTECH violates the law or Comeco violates the regulations, their permits if they get one, is not going to be decided here. It's going to be decided outside the country, where no laws can affect them. You know, one of the things that is involved in this process is a bond. Dr. Jarding talked to you about the Smith Ranch and the contamination problems there. When Wyoming went in to check out that ranch and found out not only that restoration was not being completed as it was supposed to be, and that there was a lot of contamination that was spreading, they decided that the $13 million bond that the company had, the foreign company had, to operate that mine was inadequate. And they felt it would take $150 million just to clean up what they already knew about. The company said, hey, that's too expensive, we can't afford it. And the Wyoming regulatory agency said, okay, well, how about $80 million? So who picks up the rest of the tab? That's what we have to be, remembering. Because when the mine dries up, or the price of uranium falls low enough, and the company leaves, the only thing that will be left is the bond. Now, I proposed a couple of years ago to the Water Management Board and the Mining Board that what they do on this bond is they require these company people, not the people here, but the people who make the decisions in Canada, to one, subject themselves to local state court jurisdiction, to put all of their assets, the corporate assets around the world, up as collateral for their bonds. And I couldn't get anybody to take that seriously. And I ask you to ask yourselves some questions. These uranium mining companies always say, look, we don't contaminate, this is not a problem. How come these companies are required to get a permanent exemption from the requirements of the Safe Drinking Water Act as one of the requirements for getting a permit? If you're not going to contaminate, why is that a problem?